At my own wedding, Chase asked Sophie to walk down the aisle with him, so I spun on my heel and married the ice-cold best man instead. The officiant's voice rang through the ballroom, but I was stopped in the prep lounge by my groom. He held Sophie's hand, looking troubled. Let her walk down the aisle with me. It's a promise we made when we were kids. Sophie, dressed in snow white, gazed at me pitifully. Please sis, will you help us fulfill our dream? I laughed, tore off my veil and let it fall to the floor. Then I grabbed the stunned best man beside me. Come on, let's get married. Leave them to their little dream. My fingernails cut into my palms while I forced a warped smile. That smile never reached my eyes. It sat like a rigid mask. Luna, don't be like this, Chase said, brows knitted, the usual mix of apology and impatience in his tone. We agreed when we were little. Whoever got married first, the other would walk the aisle with them. Next to him, Sophie wore a white gown almost identical to my wedding gown. Red-rimmed eyes fixed on me. That face looked so innocent, so pure, making me the villain throwing a tantrum. Sis, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I can't bear to let go of Chase. Let us have this one last dream. Okay. Huh. A dream using my wedding to complete theirs. What noble self-sacrifice. What touching devotion. My stomach churned with pure revulsion. In that cramped prep lounge, the air felt sticky and suffocating. In the mirror, I saw an expensively gowned, perfectly painted bride who looked ready for slaughter. And the man I'd loved for 3 years was now their executioner. I tore off my veil. The diamond-spangled net drifted to the grimy carpet like a lifeless cloud. The motion was faster than I expected. Chase froze. Sophie's tears finally fell as though she were the one wronged. I didn't look at them. My gaze slipped past and landed on the figure leaning against the wall. Ethan, Chase's best friend and business rival. He wore a tailored black suit, expression cold, as if the drama had nothing to do with him. But his eyes were a bottomless well reflecting my humiliation. A crazy idea exploded in my head. I hoisted my skirt, heels clicking, and walked toward him. Each step rang like a hammer in the silent lounge. I stopped in front of him. Sterling. He lifted a brow. Mind doing me a favor? Before he could answer, I seized his hand. Cool, defined, unyielding. Come on, let's get married. I pulled him and spun on my heel, not sparing Chase or Sophie another glance. Luna, you've lost your mind. Chase roared behind me. I didn't slow. I only tightened my grip on Ethan. We burst out of the lounge and the ballroom's roar hit us. The wedding march cut off. Every guest's stare felt like an arrow. The officiant gaped, the microphone nearly slipping through his fingers. My parents, Victor and Miranda, shot up from the head table, faces white. Luna, get back here. Dad's voice shook with rage. You're humiliating the Lane family. Mom grabbed my arm, nails digging in. Are you out of your mind? Apologize to Chase. This wedding is happening. Apologize. Their words iced my heart. Ever since I started dating Chase, all they talked about was the Hamilton fortune and Chase's future. They never saw my hurt, never heard my heart. No, it was the first time I'd answered them with such steel. You two marry him. I, Luna, am not getting married today. Unfilial wretch. Victor raised his hand. The slap never landed. Ethan had stepped in front of me, his tall frame shielding me completely. He said nothing. He only leveled a glacial stare at my father. Victor's hand hung in the air, then dropped, intimidated. Ignoring the chaos, Ethan glanced at his assistant. One look, and the man began directing people to clear the ballroom. Ethan led me through gaping faces toward the underground garage. The garage smelled of damp concrete. Once alone, the tight wire in my spine slackened. I started to shake. Tears scorched my lids, but I bit them back. No crying. Those two jerks weren't worth it. A chilled bottle of water appeared. Drink, Ethan said, voice low and flat. The cold helped steady me. Where now? He asked. Only one thought surfaced through my tangled head. City Hall. Ethan studied me for a few silent seconds, then opened the car door. Get in. Buckled into the passenger seat, I watched the Sterling hillside estate fall away. In the mirror, Chase darted out, shouting, shrinking to nothing. My phone buzzed nonstop with Chase's name. I hung up and powered down. Silence at last. Inside the car, only the AC hummed. I didn't know why Ethan would indulge my madness, but right then this stranger was my only raft. To the locked doors of City Hall were a bucket of ice water on my manic courage. We stood in the empty plaza, awkwardness sky high. My earlier bravado was a punctured balloon. I opened my mouth. Nothing sensible came. I confessed I'd acted on impulse and thanked him for playing along in this farce. Ethan studied me, still calm. "I'll take you to the Grand." No questions, no ridicule, just a statement carried out. He drove me to a 5-star hotel downtown and checked me in using his ID. "First cool off and think," he said, handing me the key card. Then he left without another word. Alone in the plush suite, my white gown clashed with the modern luxury. When the door clicked shut, my legs folded. I sank to the carpet, drained. I powered up my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages. Dad's curses. Mom's sobs. Chase's hysterics. "Luna, where the hell are you? Why are you doing this to me? For a best friend you just met. Do you even realize how badly you've embarrassed both families?" Reading them, I felt nothing but ice. "Why?" he dared ask. Memories flooded back. Our first Valentine's. I'd booked the restaurant. He'd spent the night comforting newly dumped Sophie. "Luna, Sophie's reckless. What if she hurts herself?" Our 1-year anniversary. Mid-dinner. He dashed off because Sophie claimed a fever and an empty house. Later I learned. She'd only had a cold and the maid was right there. Even our engagement photo shoot, Sophie tagged along in bridesmaid white for sibling shots. When the photographer posed, Chase shrugged. "We grew up together like family. It's fine." Every concession fed his entitlement, never gratitude. I thought marriage would end it. Naive me. Sophie was a toxic thorn buried deep. Chase was an overgrown boy sipping on her poison and my forgiveness. Now I knew I'd made the right call. Any last affection for the past evaporated. A new number flashed. I answered. Chase's mother shrieked. "Shameless hussy. You dare pick up? The Hamiltons must be cursed to want a daughter-in-law like you. Let me tell you, get back here right now, Neil, and apologize to every guest or I'll make sure you never work in Riverdale again." The venomous words felt like poison-dipped icicles stabbing me again and again. I was strangely calm. "Auntie," I said softly, "I'm not the star of this wedding. Tell your wonderful son and his darling Sophie to do the kowtowing. They're the perfect match." Without waiting for a reply, I hung up and blocked the number. The world was finally completely silent. On the other side, the Hamiltons and the Lanes had to be in chaos. The disaster I'd left at the altar was enough to make them lose face. Chase would be under family pressure, probably for the first time, realizing that "Luna, you're the reasonable one," no longer fixed everything. Good. I'd felt that helplessness countless times. Now it was his turn. The next morning, sunlight seeped through a crack in the curtains. The doorbell rang. I opened the door to a woman in a tailored suit who politely handed me a bag. Lane Sterling asked me to bring clothes and breakfast. I took it, dazed. Inside was a brand new sundress and still warm food. I peeled off the ridiculous wedding gown and sat by the window, mechanically eating. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass lay an unfamiliar skyline. It hit me. I was homeless. The people who called themselves my family only wanted to drag me back and gift-wrap me for the Hamiltons as an apology. While I sat lost, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Ethan in a charcoal suit, looking even colder. He stepped inside, his gaze resting on my face for a beat. "Calmer now." I nodded, uneasy. "About yesterday. Thank you." He didn't reply. He sat across from me and pulled 2 folders from his briefcase. "Luna, I need a wife." His voice was flat, like he was pitching a merger. I stared, stunned. My family keeps pushing marriage, and I need a ring on my finger to lock down a crucial business deal. You yanked me out of the church yesterday to the world we're a couple. So, let's make it contractual. His words exploded in my skull. I thought the farce was over. Apparently it had a second act. After the wedding, we stay out of each other's hair. Married in name only. Finances separate. I'll give you a place to live and basic support. 1 year from now, we divorce quietly, and I'll settle on you enough to live comfortably for life. Clear, rational, generous even. Still I hesitated. I wasn't crawling from one cage into another, even if this one was gilded. I need to think. A fist pounded on the door. Luna, open up. I know you're in there, my mother. Miranda shrieked. You ungrateful brat. Too good for your own home now. Then Dad Victor's roar. They tracked me down. My limbs went ice cold. Ethan glanced at me, signaling silence. But they weren't waiting. Luna, I'll count to 3. Then I'll have hotel security break it down. You're coming with us today to apologize to the Hamiltons and fix this engagement. If we're still your parents, open this door. I bit my lip. Despair wrapped me like a net. I've frozen every card in your name, Victor barked. Let's see how long you last without a penny. That final threat snapped the last thread. I closed my eyes, opened them and looked at Ethan. Cool, rational, powerful. A lie with him might be my only exit. All right, I whispered, voice thin but final, but add one clause. He raised an eyebrow. While this marriage lasts, we stay loyal as partners. I held his gaze word by word. It was my bottom line, the scar I'd carried out of my last disaster. A flicker of respect crossed his eyes. Done. The shouting outside kept on. Ethan Rose phoned the hotel manager. Within seconds, the corridor went quiet. Let's go, he said. Where? City Hall. They're open. 30 minutes later, we sat beneath the red backdrop. Surreal and blinding. When the burgundy booklet landed in my hand, it felt unreal. Luna married. Bows Ethan. A man who'd been a total stranger 48 hours earlier. Outside the sun was harsh. Ethan drove straight to his private hillside estate. A glass and steel box cantilevering over the city, as chilly and immaculate as he was. You'll live here. Key and fob. Master bedroom is first on the left upstairs. Use whatever you need. He delivered it like a robotic realtor. I gripped the marriage certificate, fingertips burning. I needed the world to know. Back in my room, I snapped a straight-on photo of the certificate. No filter, no angle. Posted it to the family group chat and to my feed. Caption, 2 words, deal sealed. The backlash was instant. Mom detonated first in the chat. Luna, you actually married? Who? Dad's voice messages were all capital letter rage. Friends spammed comments and DMs, but none of that matched Chase's reaction. He replied to my post with a dozen question marks, then started calling. I declined. He redialed. I blocked. Finally, a hysterical text. Luna, you actually married Ethan? You were screwing him all along? What am I to you? I almost laughed. He thought he had the right to ask. Meanwhile, the internet soured. First voice, Sophie. She posted vague bait on her account. Some people's exits were long planned. Poor Chase, kept in the dark. Now the butt of every joke. Attached was a cozy sibling selfie with Chase. Her followers flocked to comfort her. Don't cry, Sophie. She's not worth it. She ran with the best at the altar. They must have been hooking up forever. Terrifying. Feel for Chase. Such public humiliation. Soon the trending hashtag bride runs with best exploded locally. Overnight, I became the gold-digging, premeditated cheater. Streams of curses flooded in. It hurt more than I expected. An invisible fist squeezed my heart. Ethan stepped up behind me, scanned my phone, frowned. Wordless, he dialed. Clean the net chatter. Kill the hashtag. Find the source. Cool. Absolute command. He pocketed the phone. Stop reading. It's noise. I powered down and exhaled. He was right. The louder they screamed, the harder I'd shine. I couldn't hide in this villa as some pampered bird. Ethan, I called. He turned. I want to work. Surprise flickered across his face. I met his gaze steady. I studied interior design. After graduation, I gave it up for Chase. Now I'm taking it back. I'd use my own talent to smash every lie and win my name back. Ethan looked at me and was silent for a moment. Fine. Do you need my help? No. I shook my head. I want to do it on my own. This is the first battle I'm fighting for myself. I have to take the field myself. Chase completely lost it. He charged to the lobby of Ethan's tower, screaming my name, but security blocked him outside the revolving doors. He yelled and held, drawing a crowd of onlookers. In the end, the guards dragged him off like a dead dog. Barred from the building, he switched to phone bombing me. I didn't answer. He kept calling from new numbers. Finally, sick of it, I picked up once. On the other end, his voice was no longer accusatory or furious. It carried a panic and frailty I'd never heard before. Luna, I was wrong. Come back. Okay, let's start over. I was a jerk at the wedding. Sophie fooled me. I love you. Always have. He started confessing, apologizing, reciting belated sweet nothings. I listened without a word, like an audience watching a bad actor read his lines. When he finished, I spoke coldly. Hamilton, I'm already married. Then I hung up and blocked every contact connected to him. Stymied by me, Chase refused to give up and turned to harass my parents. He told them he knew his mistake and wanted nothing more than to win me back. My parents, already regretting the loss of the Hamilton good match, did an immediate 180. They called me pleading. Luna, Chase admits he was wrong. Give him another chance. Men screw up when they're young, right? You and that Sterling guy have no real feelings. It must be fake. Divorce him. Remarry Chase. That's the sensible thing. Listening to my mother's matter-of-fact tone, my heart turned to ice. In their eyes, my dignity, my feelings were worth less than their so-called face and profit. I won't divorce. Ethan and I are doing great. In the calmest voice possible, I delivered the words they dreaded most. We're trying for a baby. I tossed off that lie, then hung up on my mother's shriek. I dragged every family number into my block list. That so-called home had become my shackle and burden. Meanwhile, sensing Chase wavering, Sophie hatched a plan. She began posting melancholy captions on social media paired with drippy photos from a hospital, hinting that the other woman backlash and cyberbullying had given her depression. Once again, she wielded her pitiful fragility to milk Chaz's sympathy and guilt. I had no time for their soap opera. I sorted my portfolio, polished my resume, and fired it off to every design firm I admired. Reality slapped me hard. The scandal from that wedding clung to my name like a brand. Several firms, after reading my resume, politely rejected me for image mismatch. Each refusal punched another hole in my confidence. Was one failed romance really going to torpedo my entire career? That night, I locked myself in the study, my mood bottoming out. Ethan returned from his trip. He asked no questions, simply placed a file on my desk. Inside was the entry form for the industry heavyweight stellar design competition. I've seen your work. You have the talent. Instead of begging for chances, let your work shut everyone up. His words were a flare in my darkness. I stared at the form, then at the cool, formidable man beside me. Yes, talent is the sharpest weapon against gossip. I looked at him and nodded hard. Thank you. This time I meant it. He hadn't lifted me up, but he'd handed me the compass to rise. I poured everything into preparing for the competition. By day I holed up in the study researching, sketching, drafting. At night, Ethan would sometimes stand behind me for a minute. Though no design expert, his eye for aesthetics and business was lethal. Whenever I hit a wall, he'd offer from the sidelines a remark that sliced straight to the point. We shared a roof, spoke little, yet a strange rapport formed. When he worked late, I left the foyer lamp on for him. When I forgot meals, he'd order takeout and command me to eat in a tone that allowed no refusal. Something subtle was fermenting in the air. An evolution from stranger and suspicion to familiarity and freedom. Meanwhile, Chase's life kept spiraling downward. The wedding spectacle hadn't only humiliated his family. It had also scared off a crucial partner, who abruptly suspended a long-planned joint project. Word was that partner prized family values and reputation, and Chase's antics had crossed their red line. Worse, market buzz said Ethan's company was the potential replacement. Old wounds plus new loathing. Chase became convinced Ethan had orchestrated it all and swore revenge. I didn't take his threats seriously. A man who can't even manage his own love life. What storm could he raise? My mind was on my entry. Half a month later, the preliminary results dropped. My project had made the finals. I nearly jumped through the ceiling at the email. It was the best validation of everything I'd done. I called Ethan immediately. He was quiet for a second, then said in his usual flat tone, "Congrats. Celebrating when I get back." For the first time, I caught a ghost of a smile in his voice. The final round was in 3 days. I studied every shortlisted piece, then refined my own submission for the last time. A fierce hunch told me I could win. Yet, fate loves to sucker punch the hopeful. The night before the deadline, after I finished tweaks and reached to back up the file, my screen blacked out. On restart, every design file showed corrupted, unopenable malware. Blood roared in my ears. I tore through my desk drawers bag, every spot I might stash the daily backup flash drive. Gone. Then my phone lit with a text from Sophie. Big sis. Heard you reached the finals. Amazing. But some things aren't yours and you'll never have them. Like Chase and this trophy. Ice crawled over my skin. I shook uncontrollably. Her. It had to be her. I didn't know how she'd sneaked up to Ethan's hillside estate, but she'd torched my work. Despair swamped me like frigid seawater. Less than 12 hours remained to submit. Everything was over. I sagged into the chair, every ounce of strength gone. Just then the study door opened. Ethan walked in, travel-weary, evidently fresh off a plane. Seeing my wrecked state, his brows knitted. He opened his hand. An identical flash drive rested on his palm. You mean this? His voice sounded almost otherworldly. Found it under the foyer console when I left this morning. Picked it up for you. He never told me any of that. He simply let me submit my project without a scratch. On awards night I sat below the stage, palms swimming in sweat. When the host announced the gold trophy went to Luna, my mind went blank. Not until the spotlight hit me did I, still feeling as if I were dreaming, rise under envious eyes and applause and walk toward the podium. I took the heavy trophy, stood at the microphone, and looked out over the sea of faces. My gaze swept past strangers and locked on Ethan in the front row. He was watching me, still and intent, eyes deep enough to drown in. There's someone I want to thank. I began, voice trembling with excitement. He gave me a ray of light when my life was at its darkest, lowest point. He told me to shut every mouth with sheer strength. This trophy belongs to him as much as it belongs to me. Never once did I look away from Ethan. Under the stare of the entire hall, the usually icy man curled the corner of his mouth in the faintest smile. That tiny thought cracked the ice in my chest and made my heart skip a beat. In a back corner, Chase's and Sophie's faces were the sour gray of a painter's palette. They had come, no doubt, to watch me crash and burn. Too bad Sophie's scheme had become the perfect backdrop to my spotlight. After the ceremony, my name rocketed through the design world. Dozens of top firms and studios threw offers at me. I picked the premier agency that had long partnered with Ethan's company. I wasn't leaning on him. I was stepping to the nearest place so we could stand side by side. My career officially launched. Chase obviously refused to let the curtain fall. That night, the firm threw a welcome party for me. When it ended, he cornered me at the exit, half drunk. His eyes were bloodshot as he grabbed my wrist, demanding, "Luna, did you ever love me at all? Why are you doing this to me? To punish me, you just married some random guy." He was strong. I couldn't wrench free. Just as I opened my mouth to scream, a shadow flashed. Ethan appeared from nowhere, silent, and drove a fist straight into Chase's face. Chase staggered and crashed to the ground. Ethan pulled me behind him and looked down at Chase. "Stay away from my wife." Watching the broad back in front of me, I felt a kind of safety I had never known. A clip of Ethan punching Chase was soon uploaded by some gossip hunter. Surprisingly, the media tide flipped overnight. The caption read, "Toxic ex corners married woman. CEO hubby lays him out with alpha punch." Instead of cursing me, NetIson started dissecting what Chase and Sophie had pulled at my wedding. Their so-called childhood sweetheart story now looked like textbook toxic ex, means crybaby manipulative side piece drama. So the groom wanted to elope with another chick at the altar, and the bride clapped back. What right does this guy have? To stalk his ex? She's married. The Sophie chick's game is strong. Claims innocence while scheming non-stop. In 24 hours, Ethan and I became the sympathetic victims while Chase and Sophie were rats everyone wanted to stone. I paid no attention to the online reversal. I poured everything into work under the halo of my stellar gold plus solid skill. I secured a foothold in the firm within weeks, and won the lead on a major project. The partner on this project was the very client who had dumped the Hamiltons after the wedding fiasco. Chase's father, Hamilton's chairman, rang me personally after learning I was the project lead, asking to meet for dinner. On the call, he oozed false congratulations over my success, then began fishing for a bridge back in, even shamelessly hinting he could talk Chase into taking me back so I could return as the Hamilton daughter-in-law. I found it absurd. Chairman Hamilton, I think you're confused. First, I'm married to Ethan. Second, business is business. I've seen Hamilton's proposal. Zero innovation below client spec. I'm not running a charity. Earn your own favors. I hung up. Sophie, desperate to salvage her wobbling status, started currying favor with Chase's mother. She pocketed her princess attitude, showed up at the Hamilton estate daily, cooked, cleaned, poured tea, playing the perfect future daughter-in-law, praying for a quick wedding. Soon, Ethan's company held its pivotal annual gala. As his wife, I had to attend. I chose a razor-cut white tuxedo jumpsuit, painted on sharp polished makeup, and walked into the ballroom on Ethan's arm. At that moment, I was no longer the girl orbiting some man, nor the bride dumped at the altar. I was Luna, a designer who had arrived on her own merit, radiant and commanding. Mid-gala, I spotted my parents. They had tailed a distant cousin into the network. Seeing me beside Ethan and feeling the difference everyone showed us, their faces twisted. Shock, embarrassment, unmistakable regret. They carried their champagne toward me, hesitant. I didn't give them a chance to stage a reunion. I simply nodded coolly and steered Ethan toward the other end of the hall. Their disappointment and humiliation were crystal clear, but my heart felt nothing anymore. Inside the daily rhythm of our contractual marriage, things quietly shifted. He ceased to be the chilly business ally. When I worked past midnight, he waited in the garage without a word. He remembered I hate cilantro, that I won't drink ice water. When my stomach flared from stress, he frowned, dragged me from the study, and personally cooked soft porridge. Only then did I realize this man wasn't cold. He simply stashed every trace of care inside actions rather than syllables. My heart inevitably surrendered. Chase's firm, robbed of that major client, teetered on the brink. He pinned every hope on Sophie, ordering her to cash in the influential connection she boasted about. But Sophie's family was merely middle class. Her touted network had always been hot air. Under crushing disappointment, Chase turned on Sophie, branding her a lying fraud. Their fairy tale romance cracked beneath reality's hammer, with daily quarrels erupting between them. We collided again at an open project bed. While reviewing Hamilton's submission, I spotted a lethal design flaw. The culprit was the section Sophie had muscled her way into. Once the client noticed, the project and Hamilton's reputation would implode. Before the meeting, Sophie cornered me, attempting a bribe. She shoved a thick envelope into my hand, tears streaming. "Sis, please help me just this once, and I swear I'll vanish from your life." Her crying act transported me straight back to the prep lounge at my ruined wedding. I smirked and tossed the envelope back. "Sophie, not everyone trades honor for cash." I tapped stop on my phone's voice recorder right in front of her. During the project meeting, I left personal grudges at the door, and as lead, objectively detailed the critical errors in Hamilton's plan. Ethan's company, with a superior airtight proposal, naturally won the bid. The defeat snapped Hamilton's last straw. Standing on stage, Ethan radiated triumph while Chase's face below was chalk white. I felt nothing but release. True revenge isn't messy screaming. It's climbing to a height where he can only tilt his head and watch. The Hamilton finally declared bankruptcy. Overnight, Chase slid from pampered heir to penniless debtor. He ran to Sophie, begging for comfort and support. But when he pushed open her door, he found a fully packed suitcase waiting. Proof that the woman who once clung to him in his glory had simply walked away the moment he fell. "Where do you think you're going?" Chase asked, eyes bloodshot. "Chase, we're done." Sophie stared at him with arctic coldness. "I'm not about to drink the northwest wind with you. But you said you loved me. You said I was your dream. That was only because you were the Hamilton heir." Sophie finally exploded, shrieking hysterically. "I was jealous of Luna. Jealous that she could get everything I ever wanted without trying. I stole you just to hurt her. And now you're nothing." The two of them tore off every last scrap of pretense. Years of affection crumbled into something ugly and worthless under reality's weight. Chase, abandoned by friends and deserted by family, only now understood what he had lost. He had forfeited more than Luna. He had forfeited everything he once possessed. After I finished cleaning up the Hamilton mess, my parents, Victor and Miranda, finally lowered their proud heads. They tracked down the hillside estate where I was staying and waited outside the gate for hours. When they saw me, their eyes were rimmed with red. Tears and apologies tumbled out together. Luna, Mom and Dad were wrong. We were blind back then. We wronged you. Forgive us, please. I looked at their faces, suddenly old overnight, and the sharp thorn that had been lodged in my chest finally loosened. Blood is thicker than water, and it can't be severed. I chose reconciliation, but deep inside, I knew an irreparable crack remained. All I could offer was polite distance. Life finally seemed back on track until new trouble arrived. Ethan's mother flew home from abroad. She had learned of my existence and of our outrageous wedding. A daughter-in-law who was both divorced and of ordinary birth was clearly not her ideal. She arranged a family dinner and demanded my presence. It was a textbook red wine ambush. Throughout the meal, Eleanor's every word was scrutinized and nitpicked. Lane, I hear you were previously engaged. The Sterling family may not be absolute apex, but we do have expectations for a daughter-in-law's pedigree. I neither cowered nor panicked. I simply met her gaze, smiled, and answered evenly. Yes, Sterling. Precisely because that chapter failed, I now know exactly what I want and who deserves my life. As for pedigree, I believe a person's worth shouldn't be defined by the accident of birth. My composure impressed the other Sterling relatives. Eleanor's expression, however, stayed stormy. Just as the air froze, Ethan, silent until then, laid down his knife and fork. He caught my hand beneath the table, lifted his eyes, and in a voice firmer than I had ever heard, told his mother, Mom, her name is Luna, and she is my wife. She is also the only person with whom I want to spend the rest of my life. His declaration rang through the room like a struck bell. The dining hall fell utterly still. I turned to him, my heart flooding with warmth too enormous to name. Ethan's words left his mother in a long, heavy silence. She had probably never imagined her cold, distant son defending a woman with such unshakable conviction. She began to look at me. For some time she voiced no outright opposition, yet no wholehearted acceptance either. Then by chance, I learned that Eleanor had been vexed by the day-to-day core of her private manor. Several famous designers had failed to please her. An idea sparked. I spent an entire week studying the manor's architecture and Eleanor's tastes, then pulled several all-nighters to craft a complete renovation scheme. When I placed the thick stack of drawings and renderings in her hands, surprise and admiration flickered openly in her eyes. My concept preserved the estate's original charm while infusing modern comfort and aesthetics, solving every nuisance that had bothered her for years. That day, for the first time, she clasped my hand and said with utter sincerity, Luna, I was biased. Ethan is lucky to have married you. The truce between mother and daughter-in-law let me exhale at last. My career vaulted to a new summit. On the strength of several signature projects, my reputation soared. With Ethan's backing, I opened my own design studio. Everything moved toward the brightest horizon, except for the expiring contract between Ethan and me. We had long since crossed the line from agreement into real love. Yet I was anxious. I had fallen for him, but I couldn't read his heart. Did he love me or merely feel duty and habit? I refused to chain him with a piece of paper or add the slightest weight to his life. On the eve of the contract's end, I brewed the courage he loved, then slid a divorce agreement I had drafted weeks earlier across the table. Ethan, thank you for everything this past year. I fought the bitterness in my throat, forcing my voice to stay calm. Our agreement expires tomorrow. He studied the document, then studied me, his gaze dark and terrifying. I thought he would sign and we would part civilly. Instead, he picked up the papers and, to my stunned disbelief, tore them to shreds in front of me. The scraps drifted down like snowflakes onto the carpet. Then, from the inside pocket of his suit, he produced a velvet ring box. He opened it. Inside blazed a brilliant solitaire. He dropped to one knee before me. The man who stood at the apex of calm control was now looking up at me in the most reverent posture imaginable. Luna. His voice carried a slight nervous rasp. Before it was make-believe. Now will you let it be real? Marry me in the name of love. My tears collapsed like a broken dam. Not from sorrow, not from grievance, but from happiness too vast for words. I gazed at him through a watery veil, laughing even as I cried. I nodded with every shred of strength in me. I will. Ethan threw me a grand yet intimate wedding. No extraneous guests, no hypocritical blessings. Everyone present truly rejoiced for us. This time I wore a wedding gown of my own design and walked down the aisle on my father's arm. When Dad placed my hand in Ethan's, his eyes were scarlet. Ethan, my daughter is yours to cherish from this day on. I walked toward my love, each step steadier and happier than the last. At the ceremony, I saw genuine smiles on my parents' faces, proud, relieved, delighted that I had found true happiness. Months later, a friend told me someone had spotted a down-and-out Chase in a snack street on the other side of town. Greasy work clothes, tending a barbecue grill, bossed around by the owner, eyes empty of the swagger he once wore. Sophie, I heard, hastily married an ordinary out-of-towner. Now she scrimps over groceries and spars with her mother-in-law every day. Far from the life she schemed for, their endings no longer stirred a ripple in my heart. Under my guidance, the studio thrived, soon becoming a recognized name in the industry. Ethan and I settled into a calm, blissful marriage, partners in life and by instinct, the most attuned of collaborators at work, each the other's strongest support. A year later, inspired by my own experience, I released the Rebirth collection. It sent shockwaves through the field and won me the annual Stellar. In a media interview, a reporter asked how I looked back on that dramatic first wedding. I smiled straight into the camera. I'm grateful for that failed wedding. It forced me to grow up overnight, showed me who wasn't worth my tears, and gave me the courage to seize the one who is. You have to walk away from the wrong person before you can meet the right one. After the interview, I returned home. On a sun-soaked afternoon, Ethan and I sat in wicker chairs in our garden sipping Earl. He looked at me the same way he had the first time we met, only now the gaze was steeped in tenderness and indulgence that would never fade. We smiled at each other. The world was quiet and good. My story may have begun in ruins, but I rebuilt my life upon those ruins, and I harvested love and respect. That is more than enough.